Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. We have two very exciting guests. Usually I have one, but lots of fun today. For those of you who are new and just joining us, I am Kara Baroni, founder of CB Consulting, specializing in SMBs in the learning space, reduce operational costs, and improve efficiency with AI and thought leadership. And this is the Future of Learning podcast, where you're going to be hearing from thought leaders, founders, and true innovators just doing incredible things in the space. And there are two very important people joining me today, and we are diving into an interesting, fun conversation that's really necessary. Why AI in classrooms is absolutely critical for both learners and for teachers. So please join me in welcoming Rameez and Shariq, the co-founders of Edvisor. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Hey
Thanks for
there.
having us.
Wonderful. So let's dig right in. I used to live in San Francisco, so we're going to start there with the bridge right behind you. But would love to hear, you guys both have really unique, interesting journeys. And you're bringing me back to my Silicon Valley days, like that startup hustle culture. So this is personally very, very fun for me. But Rameez, why don't you start telling the listeners a little bit about your journey?
All right, so I am an unusual, eclectic sort of founder. You typically have your founders that have been at big brand names and done the circuit there. But I actually come from a social work background. So I used to work in frontline mental health support, helping people in emergency and crisis, and folks that were suicidal, and loved that life. And it was very powerful. But there were definitely things that I wished I could change. And really, what the reason why I got into tech was about the sense of agency. And so that was one thing we lacked big time, right? We were like the cleanup crew of society, oftentimes, right? And so your impact was very on the micro level. So that's where I started trying to find my way to pivot into tech. And so I built two companies, and then eventually got moved over to Silicon Valley, and then joined a YC seed stage startup where I helped them scale on operations and sales side, learned a ton there, and then joined DoorDash after that, where I helped them make at least $500 million on the growth side. So loved the energy there, and learned a ton. Also, I'm a lifelong student, and so I'm currently doing my part-time MBA at Berkeley Haas. Shout out to Bears, for anybody listening. And it's an amazing place to be. There's a lot of energy there, and especially trying to sell and grow in ed tech, being at one of the best schools in the country helps a lot. And so fun fact about my journey is that I'm actually a homeschooling dad, which is not, that's a separate topic, but it goes to show I am extremely passionate about helping students learn in the best possible way. And so Shariq and I joined, and we're building Edvisor.
I love that. Thank you. The question is, does your kid use your company tools that you're about to talk about?
Oh, they're five, so
Oh,
not far, but there are some awesome apps that we have been using and are looking into further. But there's going to be great work that's going to be done, and is being done right now in the AI and early childhood education space.
yeah, incredible. Shariq, what about you?
I'm just a computer nerd.
We all need a
I
computer nerd.
oh yeah. So I've been building for forever, it feels like. I was born with a keyboard on my lap. I built my first computer when I was 8. I started writing code when I was 11. I've been building products ever since. I got my degree in computer science and ended up at NASA for a little while. And from there, I just jumped directly into startups. And so I've been doing startups practically my whole like career, and a lot of it early on is just like failing forward, right? Like you mess up, you make mistakes, you pivot, you do it again, and do it again. Eventually, you get a feel for what not to do, and eventually you get pushed into the right direction. That happened with me in my first startup. We were working with brick and mortars and figuring out what sort of announcements in stores drive sales, and we were using AI to power that, and it was really cool back then. Eventually, we get enough traction and growth, and we get to a point where we really think the business is going somewhere. And then this is around 2020. And as you know, 2020 ended up shutting the entire world down, including about 90% of our customers. And so, we ended up having to close shop there. But it was a blessing in disguise because it led me to working with a bunch of other startup founders. And during COVID, I ended up launching an agency in which I just built products for other startups and learned a lot during that time. And I even helped to bring a product or a company from inception, building their product all the way to the point where they were acquired. And that was a really, really interesting journey as well. And I'm just like working with all these startups, gaining a bunch of experience. And then when I see ChatGPT, I'm like, oh, this is going to change everything. So I start like doing some research. I start looking into, okay, what industries this is actually going to affect, and how are we actually going to like enact change with things like ChatGPT. And as I'm starting my research, I immediately stop because I'm like, oh, this is going to change everything. So I focused down on what seemed to be the lowest hanging fruit, which was education. And like I created a really, really simple app called Tutorly.ai. It was the world's first Gen AI enabled homework assistant. And it just helps kids with their homework. And we grew to 500,000 users on TikTok and Instagram, on YouTube, all organically. And it was a really, really interesting growth pattern because like it was like 3 or 4 months and we went from zero to just huge amounts of users. And I thought that was success. But then I look at what we're doing and I realize we're just helping kids cheat on homework. So eventually we shift into a different mode in which we are like, okay, how can we actually help learning? How can we help students learn using AI? And that shifted us to Advisor, which is probably what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm excited to share more. But that's my
That's
story so far.
that's incredible that you guys both have such unique, different backgrounds. So then, how did the two of you come together? How did Advisor start?
Shariq, you take that
Well,
one.
yeah. So Advisor was the natural shift from, hey, we're gonna help kids cheat on homework to, hey, we're actually gonna help students learn. And it happened through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of conversations with professors and deans and faculty of universities where higher learning is happening. And we launched with just a quiz. We launched with a quiz feature in which teachers or students could upload material, and then we could create a quiz for them. And that's how we launched in our first semester. And as we're talking to these instructors, they're like, okay, well, we want this feature and we want that feature. And eventually, what we realize is that we're not going to get very far if we have to rely on other people's content. So we did something. We built a feature called Readings, which is essentially just the textbook. And we decided we're going to create our own content. We're going to create our own AI-enabled textbooks. And and that is kind of what unlocked everything. And around that time is when like we start getting a lot of demand for instructors, and there's something missing, right?
Mhm.
I'm a tech nerd. I need somebody who can like help with like growth and things like that. And Rameez was just the absolute perfect fit for me around that time. And as soon as he came in, it was like we unlocked like cohesion, right? And so that's kind of a long-winded story of how we built Advisor, and then how we got here, and then how me and Rameez met. Rameez and I actually know each other from another way, and I'll let Rameez share that.
Yeah, so fun fact, my wife's a professional wedding photographer, and we eventually found out that she photographed his wedding, and we're like, oh, wow, what a small world. But otherwise, we connected through another group of founders working on it. I was working on a mental health AI startup because I had two options. I was like, either I'm going to go deep into mental health and AI, and I had an initial prototype going, or ed tech, because that was, I just couldn't figure out the right business model. And then I met Shariq, and I'm like, I'm dropping what I'm doing. We're going to build this thing and scale it. And now I think we're going to eventually get to it, but now we're approaching over $250,000 in ARR, and our growth has been phenomenal.
Yeah, which is absolutely incredible. So you've been around what, less than 12 months, a year?
18 months.
18 months. Okay. And you've seen incredible growth, like 400% growth every semester. What do you think is really resonating the most with educators, those students like who are actually really embracing AI in the classroom?
Um, so We achieve a bunch of objectives with Advisor, and namely, we're helping improving student outcomes, and that's very, very clear, right? There is a concept in the classroom called a flipped classroom, in which students do their readings and assignments before they go into lectures, and it's a little hard to implement naturally, but with Advisor, it just comes built in. And so and flipped classroom essentially make students a little bit more engaged in class. And so we've seen that flip happen for these instructors, and they really love that. Teachers also really like the idea of, hey, I'm bringing AI into the classroom, right? Whatever that means, right? But it just feeds their energy. They feel like they're doing a service to their students because they're exposing their students to AI, which is something that is so important for them as they go into the workforce as well.
Yeah.
They also feel like heroes because they're saving students a bunch of money. Um, and so across the board, the teachers are winning, the students are winning. Teachers also save a bunch of time. They're able to elevate the mastery level of their class. They're able to ask harder questions, make students think a little bit harder, but then also like use AI to give them points back and things like that as well. So we've achieved kind of a fine balance, but overall, those are the values that they really enjoy using Advisor.
Incredible. So what I'm hearing is that you're empowering both the teacher and the student. It doesn't matter necessarily what kind of AI, but understanding their objectives, that you have a bunch of different tools that can really just help facilitate that more on both ends.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we know that there's often resistance in AI within education, with many viewing it as cheating, as you kind of already alluded to earlier. But how are you helping educators shift from seeing AI as a threat to seeing it truly as an opportunity?
Yeah. Um, sorry, Shariq, yeah,
Go ahead.
I'll take that one. So here's the thing. It's like there needs to be a complete shift in how people think about this right now. And that's what we're pushing towards. I think institutions owe it to their students to flip the script around the AI piece right now. They owe it to their students to prepare them for what is coming. And what is coming and what has come is that employers, eventually everybody gets degrees on the most part, not to become academics, but to become some sort of employee somewhere, or founder. And you need to be ready with the right skills. And so this idea of like calling it cheating is really about, it's a very selfish kind of view from educators. It's because at the end of the day, you want to see, what is this knowledge going to do for me, right? These students are customers in a way for the institution. And what they're getting out of it is a degree that will help them, degree and experiences that will help them get employed and do something meaningful in the world. And so if that meaningful means getting a blue book out and writing your answer on it, where is that taking you, right? And so the institution really owes it to the students to prepare them for the AI first world. And that's what Advisor does brilliantly. And that's, that's a portion of it, but that's really like, how do you get students to use AI in the right way to really be like a jetpack for their brain? That's what I like to call it. Right. And so embracing AI in the classroom is such a key piece for educators. And I'm like, we're on a mission to get more and more people convinced that, look, you owe it to the students to do it, to do this for them.
I love that. What do you think is the most surprising way that you've seen teachers doing this and really transforming not only the students, but like their teaching approach after implementing some of the tools that you guys have?
Shariq, why don't you take that one?
So, the naive approach, and I am afraid of insulting anybody here, but the naive approach that these instructors have to take, and I'll explain why. The institutions are telling the instructors, hey, you need to bring AI into the classroom. You need to bring AI into the classroom. And then they have they create a task force. Every school has an AI task force that is like, okay, we need to figure out how to bring AI in the classroom. But that word AI in the classroom is just mumbo jumbo. That doesn't mean anything, right? What does that even mean? These AI task force, their job is to figure that out, but they're still struggling because the tools that don't exist yet. And so the task force doesn't really know how to do it. The instructors definitely don't know how to do it. And so they default to the most basic thing that they can think of, right? Okay, well, here's my existing course. I guess you can use ChatGPT. And now they've done what their dean or their administrators have been telling them to do. But we've seen the research, we've seen the studies, and we've talked to more instructors than probably anyone else. I've personally spent over 500 hours talking to instructors this
Wow.
year, right? And we're a little over halfway through. Um, and we know that that sort of approach hurts learning dramatically because of course they're going to learn how to use ChatGPT, they're going to learn how to prompt, they're going to learn all of these things, but the original course objectives have been lost because now we have AI doing the thinking for them.
Yeah.
So that's so then that's the naive approach essentially, right? Now the more advanced approach would be to use something like us, and I fear self-promoting ourselves, but there needs to be a process. There needs to be a guide of, okay, yeah, this is how you use AI, right? It's not just Wild West, hey, use ChatGPT, but it's like, okay, use this one feature that gives you feedback on a submission, or once you get feedback, use this other feature that lets you show your mastery to recover points. Or as you're writing a discussion, here is immediate feedback that helps you write something that's more engaging and more conducive to a conversation. And so that is the proper way to use AI in the classroom, right? It's like empowering specific little things, but it's not, you don't want to give the students like access to ChatGPT and all of these other tools that just eliminate thinking, right?
Yeah. So I'm hearing that there's probably a ton of pressure on the instructors to start leveraging AI, but I mean, it's new for so many of us, right? So they're a little bit unsure, like, okay, well, I know I have to do it, so let me try to do something, but like, how do I actually maximize it so we're increasing critical thinking and that's going to help them on the job front, not just let me put some stuff together very quickly. So I'm curious, like, what are the top one or two features that you guys offer that's really helping?
So our killer feature is grade recovery. And grade recovery has wowed pretty much every single person that we've shown it to. It has a 90% engagement rate in the classrooms that it's live in. And essentially it's this. As a student is doing an assessment, the moment they get a question wrong or the moment they get partial credit on it, they have the ability to press a button. And when they press a button, a chat pops up that says, hey, this is what you did well, this is what you did poorly, and this is what you can improve on. Do you have any questions? And so you ask a question. And from that question, we dive deeper and have them, like, we answer the question for them. And we're like, hey, just for answering a question, oh, just for asking a question, we'll give you a point back. But if you want more points back, demonstrate mastery. Why don't you explain in your own words what this means? Or can you give me another example of this or that? And so we have a customized chat experience sitting on top of the feedback that we've already given the student that allows them to engage and dive deeper into the material and show us that they've actually learned. And essentially, what we're doing is we're closing the loop on the feedback that's given. And that's really, really special. And it's not something that's been able to have been done before. And we can see the impact almost immediately.
And
That's
this is driving us. And sorry, to add to that, and this is kind of driving towards this idea of the holy grail of education, which is personalized learning paths. How can students get out of a course, what they really want to get out of it, while also achieving the objectives of the individual course, right? And so at the moment, we're starting with grade recovery as one feature, but eventually our product will continue evolving in this direction to be in a place where no two students course will look exactly the same, yet they will achieve at the end of it the same learning objectives, which is beautiful, right? So if you think about, like, you go back to some AD or BC of like a Socratic dialogue where, you're talking to Plato and he's walking with his students, and you're just having this dialogue, and you can't scale that in a 200 student class, but you can with Edvisor. So that's how we think about this pedagogically.
I love this because I can't tell you now, it's been a few years since I've been out of school, right? But I can't tell you how much I just crammed all the time to get A's to pass certain standardized tests or whatever it is. but did I necessarily have mastery over something where I could then go apply it to the real world? I didn't. Right. But what I'm hearing here is this is such a mastery because it's saying, did you conceptually understand why you got it right or wrong or how to actually problem solve? And I think that's revolutionary. Like I don't know other ways that people are really doing that. So that's absolutely incredible. I'm curious before we move a bit more onto the student side, how are advisors evolving their course prep and setup with Edvisor?
How are instructors?
Yeah, or advisors,
Um,
yeah.
uh, got it. Essentially, all they need to give us is a syllabus, right? That's how it starts. With their syllabus, we can break down the learning objectives and the course outcomes that the instructors want, and then that's our base. From there, we have processes that are able to take those learning objectives and build the textbooks. And then from there, we build highlights and interactives and illustrations and a whole bunch of different things that we cram into our textbooks. And once our chapters are complete, then we're like, okay, now let's see how much coverage over the course outcomes we have. Great. Now we move into creating the quizzes and the assessments and the discussion assignments. And um, it just makes things so easy for them because we give them coverage over, okay, the instructors, they get like 5 to 6 course objectives, and they need to make sure that everything that they build in their class ties to that and that nothing is missed. Right. And so when we're able to take them from the journey of course objectives down to the assessment level, and then even being able to pull that back upstream once the students actually take these assignments to show instructors, hey, how 36 out of 60 of your students have achieved mastery, and 20 of them have not, right? And then 10 of and the rest have not attempted it yet, right? When we give them that level and then they click and they say, okay, of this course outcome, these are the 4 or 5 learning objectives that are tied to it, and this is the learning objective that is giving the students the hardest time. Click. These are actually the 15 students that are really struggling bringing that number down. Maybe you should intervene, right? So not just the course prep and setup, but all the way to the administration and the intervention part is what we're helping with and giving, for the first time, in-depth clarity and transparency to these instructors.
That's
And if you
incredible. So it's helping them like with actual data and insights through the whole process, not the beginning at the launch, not at the end, but the whole process to know exactly where people are doing well, where they can lean in. And I'm curious, like, how long does that take them then? Like they give you the syllabus, and this is something that would probably take what, weeks before?
Yeah, I can paint that picture. I mean, it's like the standard process would have been, if you're building a new course, a professor who's probably a specialist in that space would probably be spending anywhere between 40 to maybe 80 hours of their time building out a course, right? That includes assessing a number of textbooks and seeing which sections you want to assign because your textbook is going to be 500 pages and there's no way your students are even going to read 20 of them, but you're still assigning, section 15.2 to whatever, right? And so you take that and you add to that the fact that they need to now make slides. Then they need to make the right kind of assessments, and you can't just copy paste that from the book. And so it is a very, very intensive process, and the way Shariq described it, you take that and you can actually cut it down with Edvisor from starting a course from scratch, which is not always the way that it works in Edvisor. It's often you're taking a previous course and bringing it into Edvisor. But from the start from scratch, we're talking about an investment of probably no more than 5 to 10 hours. That's it, right? It's incredible. And we are also working on being able to create slides for them on the fly, which is going to be another game-changing feature. And so really all of this goes into being like, okay, well, of your massive workflow of things you need to do in your class, what do you really care about? And usually the answer is like, I want to be able to go into lectures and know my students have prepared in advance so we can have meaningful conversations.
Yeah.
I can be there for more mentorship, or for other professors, I can just focus on my research because I'm a research professor, but I still have some teaching duties. So it's been a game changer.
That's awesome. That is truly a game changer. So how do you envision, put on your magic 8 ball 5 years from now? How do you envision the role of AI in education evolving? And I know it's new, still new to the game, but like, how are you preparing teachers for this like really fast-paced, ever-evolving world?
I think that's a big question, and
Really
It
big.
is.
truth of the matter is we don't know,
Yeah.
right? I don't think anybody knows. 3 years ago, if somebody had said, "Hey, you're going to be able to create textbooks from just a syllabus or just even an idea with full interactives and like podcasts and videos and all of these things," I would have thought they were crazy, right? And here we are, and I'm the one doing it, and I still can't believe it, right? And so 5 years from now, I have no idea what's going to happen. And the best that we can do is just make sure that we are at the top of our game. We're using we're researching each and everything single thing that we can do to help learning and instructors. And if I had to venture a guess, I feel like, and I think both me and Rameez have hinted at it throughout this entire conversation, everything is going to be extremely personalized. We've already gotten incredibly good at creating content. And so now we need to be incredibly good at understanding the student. And and when we get so since we're good at understanding creating content, and once we get good at understanding the student and their journey, then it's just a matter of figuring out, okay, I need to create this content for this student and this content for this student, and just streamline that personalization process across the entire board. I think that we're going to go from uh, one professor to 30 students to like one AI professor to one student. Each student goes through their own personalized journey. And then we have some faculty or administrators that are like running much significantly larger classes and being able to add much more experiential value, right? Which is what I think that college and higher learning was all about.
Yeah. And I could, to add to that on my side, I think just to build on what Shariq said, the role of instructors will evolve in our opinion, or at least my opinion, that it will be more like, okay, well, content is cheap. It's easy to deliver. We will be able to master what it means to really help students understand a concept just through asynchronous learning plus VR. I'm a big VR fan. I think it's going to make a big comeback in the next couple of years. But the teachers and instructors, their role would be, what do they do in the classroom, right? And how can they really drive learning in that in-person experiential moment? And it will be connected in a very seamless sort of way between the AI, but it won't necessarily be the same professor teaching asynchronously as when you get to the classroom, right? So I think that's where maybe teaching faculty will play a greater role, and like research faculty will take a step back and say, well, this is not my skill set. This is not what I enjoy. I'm going to do other things. So I think education is at like a crossroads, sort of an existential moment about like, what are we really here to do? And I think it will go in some interesting directions in the next couple of years.
I have to ask, because you're also the mental health expert and we're building an app. Do you see your company evolving in that space at all? And or another big question for you, how do you see AI either helping or hurting in the mental health space, especially as everything's moving faster, more online, people are more glued to their computers? Are you guys thinking or talking about that at all as well?
A little early for that conversation, but what I will say is that we are part of a larger movement towards a lot of things, including at work and at school, moving towards an online asynchronous AI-based platform, right? And so in all of that, we will need to create additional safeguards. So for example, there's a number of mental health AI apps coming out where there's very serious concerns around like, what do you do about conversations that might involve self-harm, right? And so it's not something we've touched at Edvisor because all chats are private and so on. But it is a question to ask, like, what if you're having those kinds of conversations? What happens, especially if we move into the K-12, non-adult space? How are we there to potentially flag some concerns that might be coming up, right? And some other companies are grappling with this more than we are right now, but overall, right, I think, again, coming back to this idea of like personalized education and educators thinking deeper about like, what is my role? What am I doing here? So that in-person support, being able to give that in-person support will crank up. And so you will have professors being able to potentially detect early signs of concerns or intervention, just like even with learning, right? Because we'll be able to track using models to say this student is more at risk for their education, what's happening. And we'll know across multiple different classrooms what might be happening in their learning journey. So this is time to intervene. And so humans will play that role way better than AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to ask, because you both are the like AI gurus really, but I'm curious how you've, just for the listeners who, are also founders, also scaling and juggling a million different things, employees, you guys have what, 25 employees, I think you said. Like, how have you leveraged AI? How do you think about leveraging AI? And then as you've scaled so rapidly, and then how do you also maintain quality?
Shariq, you got this
So
one.
I use AI on a daily basis. It's just a sounding board. Sometimes when I'm conceptualizing features or product ideas, I just turn on the voice mode and I just rant to it, and then I say, okay, well, summarize what I said back to me, and that's really, really good. What I found is that it doesn't really come up with the most phenomenal solutions, but it's a great way to mirror what you're thinking about, and like if I need it for research, I use it that way. I think a lot of the what's public right now, it leaves a lot on the table, and like I want more, right? Like I want more, and I want stronger integrations with our technologies. But uh, just as a sounding board, I think it's great. I'll pass it to Rameez as well.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on this. So I'll start off with saying, whenever somebody gets hired on my team, the first thing I tell them is that regardless of how long you stay with us, I want you to leave Advisor whenever you do, feeling like this was the greatest decision of your life. And the reason is because we are 3 years almost into since the current LLM AI version revolution began with ChatGPT. And so those skills are so critical in the world that is coming. And so I tell them that, when you go in, everything you need to do, think, how can I improve this with AI? Right? What can I do? And so we give access, obviously, to all the important LLMs to all our employees, and they can access it in all kinds of ways. I give them lots of tips on how. And so, for example, our SDRs, they need to do research on their prospects. So we're able to build agentic models to go out and do research on platforms like Relevance AI and a bunch of others. Just vanilla LLMs like Gemini that are connected to the internet can do incredible things. And so now things that would have taken a regular SDR to do maybe a full week, they can do it literally in one sitting of like 2 hours. And so we start thinking more, and I constantly think about this. It's like, okay, what's the human component here? I'm personally not a fan of all those companies that are coming out that you can make your entire sales team AI. No way. Like, I think people can still tell when they're talking to an AI and they talk to it differently. I want to keep the human component human while taking the pressures off of some of the more mundane and tougher things of the job, and be like, okay, well, how do we just focus on what it means to have one human connect to another in a sales context, and on a marketing context for us to be able to speak like humans. So big fan, big proponent of it, pushing them to use AI as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And along similar lines with staying present, staying connected to your mission and your vision, and honestly, with the two of you taking on so much, growing such a company so quickly, I'm sure you work a lot, especially in the area that you're in. I'm curious, just for our listeners, I always like to kind of end on a mental health and staying connected to your mission and your vision. But like, how do each of you really watch your energy and prevent burnout?
Rameez, why don't you start?
Oh man. Or I'll just start off with saying, like, it's tough as founders. There's this kind of ethos in Silicon Valley that founder mode means like nonstop 14-hour days. Otherwise, you're gonna be not gonna make it, right? There's this whole trend going on. that's kind of awful. I personally think we should not be doing such a thing. Really, like it's going to catch up with you if you're not grounded, right? So on my end, I think this really is a question for everybody to answer themselves. And everybody else has a different, like founders are not a great people to ask because we're kind of crazy. We do, I think, superhuman things. So we're not a great set point, but I am human at the end of the day. Do come from a mental health background, so I'm very self-aware. And so on my side, I know what keeps me grounded now and used to when I did mental health and used to watch the most horrible things happen to people, good people, and so on, is family and love, right? And so relationships are so key to being human. And so every time, I make sure to make time for my girls, my wife, my parents. I always call my mom. I'm one of those people every single day without fail.
Every day. Wow, that's
Every
great.
day, every day. So I stay grounded in love and relationships, and from psychology and that's my background. We know like there's a few key things that are pillars to happiness, and so relationships keep me fundamentally grounded at all times, and so I'm always checking there, putting time in there along with work.
I love that. You're a good son.
Thank you.
For my side, I'm also very self-aware, but I still do it. Um, it's the thing is, it's easy when you just love what you do, right? I'm
Yeah.
surrounded by people that I just absolutely admire. Rameez, phenomenal person, phenomenal founder, phenomenal partner, overall, and just the rest of the team, they're all working so hard at all hours of the day. We have a night shift and a day shift, right? And so all of them are just so passionate and so energetic, and that energy is contagious. And they see me working, and they're like, wow. And they work harder, and then I see them working, and I work harder. And when you're actually doing something that's like why do I talk to so many professors, right? I can put SDRs in front of them and like not and take back so much time. But when I see their eyes widen, when I show them what we're building, right? When I hear them say audibly, wow. And like our demos have gotten to the point where I can actually mouth the moment where they laugh, or the moment when they say wow or oh, and things like that. It's like it's become so clockwork, and I live for that. And it is absolutely an ego trip, 100%. Because we built it, right? But on the flip side of things, we're actually making a positive impact on the world. Like that is so hard to do with startups, right? You got to claw for this sale, this deal. You need to um, like do a whole and this isn't my first startup, so I know, right? But like here I can see that students are learning. We're getting student feedback, and they're raving about grade recovery. They're telling us, hey, without Advisor my grade would have been like a 70. With Advisor my grade's like an 83. Like when I see things like that, it just becomes easy. And then I have an incredibly supportive wife, very, very supportive family, parents. I'm supposed to call my mom every day. I probably call her every like 2 to 3 days. And like, they're coming over in just like 30, 40 minutes hanging out with me because they themselves know, hey, Shark sometimes can't call, right? And so incredibly supportive family and friends, and yeah.
I just love the passion and everything that you described, and I do really feel like that is the way to prevent burnout is doing something that just so energizes you. So even by the end of the day, you might be tired from doing the work, but you're so lit up by the people around you, like they're like what you're doing, everything's giving you energy. So I just loved how you described that. Is there any last words that you would like to leave our listeners with?
If you are an instructor and you are looking into figuring out how to use AI in your classroom, you should absolutely reach out to me directly. You are more than welcome to. Can I plug my email
Yeah, I was
address?
gonna ask how can they find you?
Yeah, so they can reach out to me at Shariq@Edvisor.ai. If that's too hard to spell, you can reach out to me at support@Edvisor.ai as well. I'd be more than happy to work with you directly and get you sorted. And if you don't want to email me, you can always check out our website, advisor.ai.
Yeah. And I'll leave off on something that is at the heart of how Edvisor has grown. And Shariq and I, and Shariq is really good at this, is that we have this value, is that always help, right? And so at any given time, we are always ending our calls with saying, if there's anything I can do for you, let us know. So there's always usually like something you want from a person, but we go in with this attitude, and I live by this, and Shariq lives by this, is that we don't ask for anything in return. We are there to help. And you would be surprised how, karma, whatever you want to call it, it comes back around and it helps you, right? And so we are there. We are taking calls with undergraduate students who are like, hey, you guys are so cool. Can I ask you a couple of questions? Oftentimes that call goes, leads to like, do you have an internship space? And we say, not right now, but let us know how we can help otherwise. And so, we're always there to take calls and make time in our busy schedules to help students out, professors out, whatever it is, right? No questions asked, nothing necessarily required in return. And so I just want to say to other people, this is my advice. It's like, help people out. It will benefit you in the long run.
I love it. I love you guys' energy, your passion for your mission, and that continued ripple effect and impact. So thank you. A big thank you to both of you for joining us today. If you enjoy this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's looking to stay on the cutting edge of learning. Okay, goodbye for now. Signing off.